Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan Radhe. Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan Radhe. Jai Gaura Nitai Jaya, Gaura Nitai Jaya, Gaura Nitai Jaya, Gaura Nitai. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Jagannatha, Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Gaura Premanande. Jayom Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotra Sat His Divine Grace Abhay Charanar Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai Ki Jai. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Radhashtami Mahotsav Ki Jai. Srimati Radharani Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. Jnanativirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'm very happy to be with all of you in ISKCON Atlanta. This is the first time I have the pleasure of being with all of you. Amarendra Prabhu, I believe, had invited me several months ago, but somehow it didn't work out, and it just happened only now. And so then finally, I think I could not refuse his invitation. In any case, I'm happy to be with all of you. I do hope that all of you are keeping well and safe. I do not know what the pandemic situation is in your place. But nevertheless, I wish that all of you are well and happily continuing with your Krishna conscious activities. So as you know, the topic for today is the significance of Radhashtami. Radhashtami is just around the corner. We are celebrating here in India day after tomorrow. I do not know when you will celebrate it in Atlanta. So the word significance is significant because when we ask about or speak about the significance of something, we want to know the importance of something. So when we say the significance of Janmashtami, for example, we say the importance of Janmashtami or the significance of Ram Navami, the importance of it. So a particular day or an event, it has a significance because of something that happened there. So Janmashtami is important because Krishna was born on that day, and Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly with Lord Ram. So when we speak of the significance of Radhashtami, we want to speak about its importance. And to know the importance, then we have to understand who Srimati Radharani is, because this is the appearance day of Srimati Radharani. So why is Radharani important for us? Why is she important? So this, of course, is a very important topic for us, because without this, our understanding of Krishna consciousness will be incomplete. Now, every Radhashtami, I never tire of narrating one particular experience I had when I was traveling by train in India many years ago. And although I feel disinclined to repeat it, but because it is so instructive and because it serves as such a nice opportunity for explaining who Srimati Radharani is and what her significance is, I like to repeat it every year. But it so happened that in this train journey, I was sitting and reading a book, Srila Prabhupada's book, BBT book, and the cover had a painting of Sri Krishna. There happened to be an elderly lady sitting in front of me, who I later learned was a professor in some college. And she saw the book I was reading. Initially, she didn't say anything. But after some time, I suppose she could not hold herself back. I could see that she was getting a little restless. Then finally, she came out with it. And when our eyes met, then she said, "Why does God have to be a man?" So now that, and the tone in which she spoke was somewhat belligerent. So now I was taken aback because I wasn't expecting this kind of a question. I was expecting some question, maybe, about what is bhakti, or what do you have in this book, or something like that. But then I saw it as an opportunity for preaching, but I was a little tentative because of her mood. It was almost on the border of being a little aggressive. So then, to make the mood a little lighter, I immediately responded to her and said, "Madam, it's not my fault. What can I do? I did not make God. God has made all of us. And He is who He is. And scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita give us information of who He is. No, but then why does He have to be a man?" So then I had a small discussion with her. And I'll begin this lecture today by giving you some of the points that I mentioned, that I don't remember exactly the entire conversation and the details, but at least some of the points that I mentioned I would like to place before you. Basically, I told her that why are we so fixated with the idea of gender so much? Because in this material world, gender is not a permanent or a sustainable identity. Because one may be born in a male body in whatever species of life. in this life. And then it may be that one is born in a female body in the next life, either in the same species or in another species. Now, what to speak of in the next life? Even in the same life nowadays, there are people who undergo surgeries, sex change surgeries. So they become male from female or female from male. So there are such things happening. So the point is that our conception of gender is based upon the bodily concept of life. And ultimately, we are not the body, we are the spirit soul. So when we are considering spiritual matters, and especially in our connection to Krishna, we have to keep sight of this fact that one cannot impose our materialistic conceptions of this world upon Godhead, upon the spiritual realm. Because the spiritual realm, the ultimate reality, exists in its own glory, far beyond the reach of the material world, far beyond the purview and the range of our senses, or even the extensions of our senses, like our instruments, telescopes, or whatever. So we make a mistake when we try to understand transcendental subject matters through the experience that we have in this world and through the logic and reasoning that we concoct with our intelligence. So therefore, whether God is a male or a female, whether he is masculine, feminine, is an important question, but it doesn't mean that because God happens to be masculine and we happen to be feminine, then we should feel affronted by this or we should feel offended by this. And neither should that matter to anybody else. Because ultimately the spiritual realm goes beyond these genders of the material world. Now, the second point is we have to introduce two words here. One is called Purusha and the other is called Prakriti. The word Purusha implies the Lord or the Master, and specifically it implies one who is the controller, one who is the enjoyer. And there is only one supreme enjoyer. Actually, there is only one enjoyer, and he is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, because he wants to enjoy himself, not only alone, but he wants to exchange transcendental mellow, so he expands himself into unlimited entities, and then he enters into a relationship with them. So those entities are the energies, the Prakriti. So Prakriti are the elements. So Prakriti is that which is meant to serve the Purusha. And the Prakriti constituting all the living entities of this world are fundamentally meant to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate Purusha. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, we see that the individual soul has also been referred to as Purusha on some occasions. For example, Purusha Prakriti Stohi Bhumte Prakriti Jair Gunair Karanam Guna Sangosya Sadasat Yoni Janmasu, where Krishna describes that when the enjoyer, Purusha, referring to the spirit soul here, wants to enjoy the resources of material energy, then it is sent down into the material world, and where the soul now becomes entangled in the cycle of birth and death and has to take birth in various species of life, sad, asad, yoni, sometimes in the higher species of life, sometimes in the lower species of life. So why has the jiva been referred to as a Purusha here? If the jiva is actually Prakriti, or the energy of Krishna, it is the marginal energy of Krishna, the jiva shakti of Krishna. It is because the jiva is falsely desiring to be a Purusha, or an enjoyer, or a controller. So it's a kind of a fantasy that the jiva has in his mind, or in her mind. And this material world is a kind of a kshetra, or a territory where the jiva may try to play out his or her fantasy of being the enjoyer and the controller. So therefore, ultimately, all the living entities are meant to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they are Prakriti. Even material energy is called Prakriti. But material energy by herself is not conscious. So the jivas have to activate material energy. So both the material energy, which is called Maya Shakti, and the spirit souls, who are called the Jiva Shakti, are Prakriti, and they are meant to serve the Supreme Purusha. And the jivas may falsely claim or understand themselves to be a Purusha. Therefore, they're called Purusha sometimes. Now, the interesting thing is that Purusha is masculine, Prakriti is feminine from a grammatical point of view, and also from an ontological point of view. Because if Prakriti is the enjoyed and Purusha is the enjoyer, so we have the idea of Purusha being the masculine and Prakriti being the feminine. Therefore, all living entities, regardless of whether they are currently in a male body or in a female body, from this point of view, are actually feminine in gender, purely from a spiritual point of view, mind you. Of course, in the material world, we have so many different types of bodies, some male, some female, etc. But from the spiritual platform, it's all feminine with respect to Krishna. And one may think, well, in the Vaikuntha world, there are male devotees. In Goloka Vrindavan, the spiritual world, there are cowherd men, there are the cowherd boyfriends of Krishna. So yes, even they eventually are meant only for serving Krishna, who is the ultimate Purusha. So this is the second consideration, that one really need not worry about whether one is in a male body, in a female body, and therefore one should not try to understand or analyze or judge the Vedic teachings about the Supreme Lord from this limited point of view. So now let us understand the concept of the absolute truth. This is how I was trying to explain to this professor lady. Now, by definition, the absolute truth must be complete and perfect. The absolute truth must include everything within our experience and outside of our experience. We experience so many dualities in this world. So therefore, all these dualities must exist within the Supreme Lord. And indeed they are. And these apparent opposites or dualities then become reconciled most harmoniously and in a sublime fashion within the absolute truth. That is why he is absolute. And we are relative. We are living in a relative world where everything depends on something else, where everything is dependent. Whereas Krishna, the Purusha, the complete absolute truth, is completely independent, as the Bhagavatam says, Swarat. So Swarat means one who's fully independent. Now, coming to the lady's question, why does God have to be only a man? So the answer is God is not only a man, or man in the sense of masculine. God is also feminine, because we see feminine and masculine, both genders in this world. So therefore, in the complete absolute truth, both genders must exist. And indeed they do. If the absolute truth was only masculine and there was no feminine aspect to the absolute truth, it would mean that the absolute truth is incomplete. It is imperfect. So therefore, the Supreme Lord has two aspects. One is the masculine, the other is the feminine. And together they constitute the complete absolute truth. So the masculine is Krishna, and the feminine aspect of the Supreme Lord is Srimati Radharani. So to use Srila Prabhupada's words, Srimati Radharani is the tender-hearted, feminine counterpart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So therefore, Krishna and Srimati Radharani together constitute the supreme absolute truth. And then from them, everything emanates. And then from Krishna, all the expansions of the Vishnu Tattvas, all the incarnations happen. From Srimati Radharani, all the Shaktis happen. They expand themselves from there. So actually, Radha Krishna are one absolute truth. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Adi Leela, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Radha Krishna Eko Atma Dui Deho Dhari Anyonye Vilase Rasa Aswadana Kori. He says, Radha Krishna Ek Atma. Radha Krishna are actually one. They're one personality. But Dui Deha Dhari. But they have now expanded themselves into two. They are manifested in two parts. Why is that? Anyonye Vilase Rasa Aswadana Kori. Because they want to enjoy rasa, transcendental mellows, with each other. Anyonye means with one another, vilas means to enjoy. So with each other, they want to enjoy. What do they want to enjoy? Rasa. What kind of rasa? Transcendental rasa. So therefore, that one absolute truth has manifested as two personalities, Krishna, Krishna. So, so now that one absolute truth has manifested as two, the masculine and the feminine. So together they constitute the complete absolute truth. So without Srimati Radharani, Krishna is incomplete. He is imperfect. So Srimati Radharani is the Shakti or the energy, the Prakriti of Krishna. And because we generally think of Prakriti in terms of the material energy, we must understand that Srimati Radharani is the original ultimate Adi Prakriti. So one of her names is Moola Prakriti. Mool means original. So she is the original energy of Krishna. And from her emanate all the other energies. Inasmuch as Krishna is the original supreme Godhead, and from him emanate all the other forms of Godhead. So in the same chapter of the Adi Leela, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Radha Purna Shakti Krishna Purna Shaktiman Dui Vastu Bheda Naye Shastra Paraman. So he says Radha Purna Shakti and Krishna Purna Shaktiman. So Srimati Radharani is the complete, Purna means complete. So Radharani is the complete Shakti or the energy. And Krishna is the Purna Shaktiman. Shaktiman refers to the energetic or the source of the energy. Doi Vastu Bhedanai, Kaviraj Goswami says, within the Shakti and the Shaktiman, there is no Bhed. Bhed means the difference. So they are one. And Shastra Paramana. So it says there is Praman or there is evidence for this in the scripture. And then he goes on to explain or elaborate this or to elucidate this particular concept of how the Shakti and Shaktiman are one. So he says, Mrigamada Tara Gandha Jaiche Anucheda Avicheda Agni Jwalate Jaiche Kabhu Nahi Bheda. So he says, he gives two analogies, upamans. One is Mrigamada. Mrigamada refers to musk. You know, there is a particular kind of a deer called the musk deer who secretes a very fragrant substance from its body. And it is very heady and very intoxicating, this particular fragrance. So it is very much valued. So there are people who capture this particular musk deer to get that little musk. And then it is used to make a variety of perfumes in this world. So Mrigamada means that musk, which comes from the musk deer. And Tara Gandha. Tar means it's. Gandha is scent. Joiche avicheda. So in the same way as musk and its scent cannot be segregated, in the same way as Agni Jwalate Joiche Kobhunahu Bheda, inasmuch as the fire cannot be separated from its heat, in the same way Krishna and his Shakti cannot be separated. So this is an analogy. And Srila Prabhupada speaks about the simultaneous oneness and difference, the Achintya Bheda Bheda, principle of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it is actually inconceivable, this idea. And I want to read one or two lines from Prabhupada's purports in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where he actually elaborates on this. So I'm quoting. This is from the Adi Leela, chapter 4, text 56, which is the verse that I just read out, actually, in the first verse that I recited. So Srila Prabhupada says, the two transcendentalists, Radha and Krishna, are a puzzle to materialists. The above description of Radha and Krishna from the diary of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami is a condensed explanation, but one needs great spiritual insight to understand the mystery of these two personalities. One is enjoying in two. Krishna is the potent factor, and Srimati Radharani is the internal potency. According to Vedanta philosophy, there is no difference between the potent and the potency. They are identical. Everything in the absolute is inconceivable in relative existence. Therefore, in relative cognizance, it is very difficult to assimilate this truth of the oneness between the potent and the potency. The philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference propounded by Lord Chaitanya is the only source for understanding such intricacies of transcendence. So Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here that this is how we must understand Radha Tattva or Radha Krishna Tattva or even Krishna Tattva. So Radha and Krishna are one who have manifested into two for the sake of exchanging transcendental rasa. And then further, Kaviraj Goswami says, Radha Krishna oiche sada eka iswarupa lila rasa asvadite dhore dui rupa. So Radha Krishna oiche sada eka rupa. So they're always one form, but lila rasa asvadite, for the purpose of relishing or tasting transcendental mellow through their pastimes, dhare dui rupa. Therefore, they manifest themselves in two forms, Radha and Krishna. So in this way, we have understood the basic concept of Srimati Radharani's existence. So then that is how I explained to this lady, professor, in brief. Today in the lecture, I have elaborated it a bit. But at that time, perhaps she was not as receptive and I could not sit and give her a lecture, but I explained as briefly. So therefore, we have a very important point to consider at this point, since our topic is the significance of Radhashtami, which means the significance of Srimati Radharani, and which is that the absolute truth can be understood to different degrees and in different manners by different people depending on their knowledge and the level of realization. If one wants to have a complete understanding of the absolute truth of God, then one cannot have it without understanding Srimati Radharani. So the complete understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth is Radharani and Krishna. So we did mention, so anyway, I explained to that lady and we'll move on with the discussion about the Shaktis. So because Srimati Radharani is the Moola Shakti, what does it mean? Actually, Krishna has one energy, the Swarup Shakti. But that one Swarup Shakti has innumerable manifestations, and one can categorize them according to their functions or according to different angles of vision. So that one energy can be called spiritual or material, it can be called Sandhini, Samvit, Ladini, etc., etc. But broadly, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see that Krishna's Shakti has three divisions. One is the Chit Shakti, which is the spiritual energy. The second is the Jiva Shakti, which is the living entities and the marginal potency. And the third is the Maya Shakti, the material energy. The Chit Shakti, which is the spiritual energy, can also be considered to have three aspects, as explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The first aspect of it is Sandhini Shakti, the second is Samvit Shakti, and the third is Hladini Shakti. Now, it is important that as we go along, we familiarize ourselves with these terms. So even if some of you have not heard these terms before, it is good to hear them now. And I'm not going to pastimes today because we are not on Radhashtami day. I'm sure you'll be hearing about the birth pastime of Srimati Radharani and other pastimes on the day of Radhashtami. So today I'll restrict myself to a little bit of philosophy. So the Sandhini Shakti is that part of the Chit Shakti that is actually responsible for the existence of, of Krishna, of Krishna's form. And it is from the Sandhini Shakti that Krishna's form manifests. The Samvit Shakti, or the knowledge potency of the Lord, is that potency by which the Lord understands himself and causes others to understand him as well. And finally, we have the Hladini Shakti. The Hladini Shakti is that aspect of the Chit Shakti which gives bliss, transcendental bliss. The Lord has nothing to do with material pleasure. It gives transcendental bliss to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also it gives bliss to his pure devotees. So, just as the Sandhini Shakti is responsible for the form of Krishna, similarly, the Hladini Shakti manifests the form of Srimati Radharani. So in this way, we can understand the existence of these two personalities with respect to their Shaktis. And when the Lord expands himself, Eko Bahusyam, to become so many different living entities, and he engages in loving relationships with them, what does it mean? This exchange of loving relationship implies an exchange of rasa, an exchange of transcendental bliss. So this is a function or a manifestation of the Hladini Shakti of the Lord. Prabhupada has explained in the purports in this chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita some very important instructions here, philosophical instructions. He says that it is through the Samvit Shakti that one can actually understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But unless that Samvit Shakti is reinforced by the Hladini Shakti, one cannot actually understand the Supreme Lord. A very important point. Srila Prabhupada mentions that there are three types of cognitions, or three ways of knowledge, or three types or methods of understanding knowledge in this material world. One is direct, the second is indirect, and the third is perverted. So the perverted understanding is what we have in this material world as conditioned living entities. So our only source of information is sense perception. And we think that what our senses tell us must be the truth, and there is nothing beyond that. So that is perverted cognition, and that can never reveal the supreme absolute truth to us. Neither Srimati Radharani, nor Krishna, nor Vrindavan, nor the whole Vaikuntha abode. Then there is what is called Indirect knowledge, which Srila Prabhupada explains as the process of negating sensory perception and trying to understand the absolute truth by speculative processes. So essentially, he's referring here to the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman. So the Brahman is also the supreme truth as the absolute truth, but it is only one aspect of it. And then finally, there is direct knowledge. This direct knowledge is the realm of the Samvit Shakti. It is because of Samvit Shakti that one actually tries to understand Krishna, understand spiritual knowledge. But as I mentioned earlier, it is only by the reinforcement of the Ladini Shakti and by a combination of the Samvit and Ladini Shakti, we can actually understand Krishna. Because knowing Krishna can be done only by love, as Bhagavad Gita says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschakshmi tattvataha, correct? And many verses like that. So if you want to know Krishna, you have to love him. And love means bliss on the spiritual platform. Therefore, knowledge of Krishna is not just an intellectual understanding. It is an understanding through the process of love, which is non-different from happiness, transcendental happiness. So therefore, the important point here is, without Srimati Radharani, we cannot understand Krishna. Okay, because Srimati Radharani is the personification of the Ladini Shakti. How so? Again, Kaviraj Goswami describes that the essence of this Ladini Shakti is prema. The essence of prema is called bhava. The essence of bhava is called mahabhava. And the personification of this mahabhava is Srimati Radharani. So this is who Srimati Radharani is. So now we have discussed her identity and how it is important for us to understand or go through Srimati Radharani. Without going through her, we cannot understand Krishna. And therefore, I come to another part of the purport which I had read. I'll read another couple of lines that Srila Prabhupada says here. The very name Radha suggests that Srimati Radharani is eternally the topmost mistress of the comforts of Sri Krishna. As such, she is the medium transmitting the living entity's service to Sri Krishna. Devotees in Vrindavan therefore seek the mercy of Srimati Radharani to be recognized as loving servitors of Sri Krishna. Very important point for us. This is where the significance really lies for us, for Srimati Radharani. She is the medium transmitting the living entity's service to Krishna. So if we want to become pure devotees, we have to go through Srimati Radharani, because she will then carry our service to Krishna and say, my dear Krishna, this particular devotee in the Radha Madan Mohan temple in Atlanta is serving you very nicely. So please accept his service or her service and make them pure devotees. Please accept their service, and Krishna is obliged. And therefore Prabhupada says, devotees in Vrindavan therefore seek the mercy of Radharani in order to be recognized as loving servitors of Sri Krishna. So our bhakti is inadequate, it is incomplete, it is lacking when we do not go through Srimati Radharani. She is the perfection of devotional service. There can be no greater devotee than Srimati Radharani. And she is also the personification of pure devotional service, which is non-different from transcendental bliss. Love and bliss are the same on the spiritual platform. Although in the material world, love very often converts to hatred. Yes, because this is the world of duality. But in the spiritual world, it doesn't happen. Therefore, Radharani's position as the personification of pure devotional service is very important. I mentioned in the beginning that Srimati Radharani is the tender-hearted feminine counterpart of Sri Krishna. Because she's tender-hearted, she may overlook a few things, the defects that we may have. And if we sincerely try to please her and we pray to her lotus feet, then our life will be successful because she's very kind-hearted. So when you go to her, she will very easily shower her mercy. And as we all know, on birthdays, people tend to be more magnanimous. So Srimati Radharani anyway is extremely magnanimous, but on Radhashtami, she is going to be even more so. So perhaps when you celebrate Radhashtami, you can especially remember to ask for her mercy so that we may be fortunate recipients, and then our life can become perfect. In Gaudiya Vaishnavas, at the same time, we also petition the mercy of Krishna to be able to serve Srimati Radharani. This is the curious paradox, because we don't want to be known and only as servants of Krishna. We want to be known as servants of Radharani, servant of the servant of the servant, because the topmost servant of Krishna is Srimati Radharani. So to say that I'm a devotee of Krishna is a very big thing, because that position is reserved for Srimati Radharani and a few exalted souls like that. Or not souls, Srimati Radharani is not a soul, but few personalities like that. And then Srimati Radharani has so many assistants who then have assistants. So our position is Gopi Bhartuhu Padakamalayora Dasa Dasanu Dasaha, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said. So therefore, in our aspiration in the Sampradaya of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we want to be servants of the servants of the servants of Srimati Radharani. So here is how we pray to Radharani for getting Krishna's mercy. We pray to Krishna for being allowed to assist Srimati Radharani, many times removed, as her servant. So Radhashtami is about 15 days, 14 days, roughly 14 or 15 days, depending on the length of the tithis, away after Janmashtami. So as we all know, Krishna appears on the Ashtami, or the 8th day of the waxing or the waning, of Krishna Paksha, so waning fortnight of the month of Bhadra. And Srimati Radharani appears in the same month, but a fortnight later in the Shukla Paksha. So she appears on the Shukla Paksha in the Ashtami Tithi in the same month of Bhadra. So actually, devotees ask sometimes the question, what is the age difference between Srimati Radharani and Krishna? Now, there are lots and lots of things going around on the internet. Don't get confused by what all these opinions are. Actually, in the spiritual world, eternally, Srimati Radharani is about 14 years and 2 months and 15 days, I think. This is the statement of Dhyana Chandra Goswami in his Paddhati. And Sri Krishna is 15 years and 9 months and 7 days or something. So the difference in age between them in Goloka Vrindavan and eternal Leela, Nitya Leela, is about 1 year and 7 months. But that may not be the case in Prakat Leela. Prakat Leela is when their lordships manifest in the material world. So here we see that the tithis differ only by a fortnight, a lunar fortnight. However, it is believed that the Radharani was born in the year after Krishna's birth. So which means that there is a difference in age in Prakat Leela, manifest pastimes, of 1 year and a fortnight between Krishna and Srimati Radharani. So Srimati Radharani has come along with Krishna. Krishna never comes alone, just as Shakti and Shaktiman will always be there. And she participated in the pastimes, and she has come to bestow her mercy. And how can one complete a lecture about Srimati Radharani without mentioning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Because Sri Krishna and Radharani were one, they became two, and again they became one as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Krishna, but he has come in the guise of Srimati Radharani. Krishna Swarupam. So Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam. So he is Krishna Swarupa, but he has come with the bhav, that is the mood, and the kanti or the complexion of Srimati Radharani. He has come to taste the mellows that Srimati Radharani experiences in her relationship to Krishna. So for us, therefore, Radharani is also more important because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to taste those mellows. And he has come to spread this message of this transcendental mellow and the mood of Vrindavan amongst everybody. Srimati Radharani ki jai. Shri Radhashtami Mahotsava ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai. So I would now like to sing a song, okay? A Vaishnav song by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So have you shared the screen with me?
Yes, Maharaj, you have the co-host rights. So.
Okay. Go. ठीक है. 1 minute. Okay. So this is called Shri Yugal Arati, composed by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. It is from Geetavali. Jaya Jaya Radha Krishna Yugal Milana. Jaya Jaya Radha Krishna Yugal Milana. Arati karo ve lalita di sakhi gana. Arati karo ve lalita di sakhi gana. Madana Mohana Rupa Tribhanga Sundara. Madana Mohana Rupa Tribhanga Sundara. Pitambara Shikhi Pucha Chura Manohara. Pitambara Shikhi Pucha Chura Manohara. Jaya Jaya Radha Krishna Yugala Milana. Jaya Jaya Radha Krishna Yugala Milana. Lalita Madhava Vame Vrishabhanu Kanya. Lalita Madhava Vrishabhanu Kanya. I beg your pardon. Lalita Madhava Vame Vrishabhanu Kanya. Lalita Madhava Vame Vrishabhanu Kanya. Sunila Vasana Gaura. Sunila Vasana Gauri Rupe Gune Dhanya. Sunila Vasana Gauri Nana Vidha Alankara Kore Jalamala. Nana Vidha Alankara Kore Jalamala. Hari Mano Vimohana Vadana Ujvala. Hari Mana Vimohana Vadana Ujvala. Vishakha Disakhi Gana Nana Rage Gaya. Vishakha Disakhi Gana Nana Rage Gaya. Priya Narma Sakhi Jata Chamara Dhulaya. Priya Narma Sakhi Jata Chamara Dhulaya. Shri Radha Madhava Pada Sarasija Ashe. Shri Radha Madhava Pada Sarasija Ashe. Bhakti Vinoda Sakhi Pade sukhe bhashe. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radhe. Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radhe. Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Vrindavan Dham. Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Vrindavan Dham. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Shri Radhashtami Mahotsav ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So I'm just on time, I think.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Maharaj, you have a question answer slot in this session, or you are?
Yeah, it's fine. We can have question answers.
Okay. Yes, Maharaj. So, devotees, you can either type in your question on the chat, or you can raise your hand, and we can have how much of a time Maharaj has. We will slot in those many questions. So we have a hand raised from Karthik Kripa Prabhu. Karthik Kripa Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for such a wonderful class. My apologies for not being able to show my face today, but I'd like to ask you a question. Earlier in your class, you mentioned Chit Shakti. Could you please explain to us what is Chit Shakti and what role it plays in our spiritual life and day-to-day life?
Chit Shakti is spiritual energy as opposed to Achit, which is not conscious and not spiritual. So, of course, ultimately, as I mentioned, Krishna has one energy which manifests in its original pure form in the spiritual world, and is in its reflected form in the material world. So the Maya Shakti is also a kind of a reflection of the spiritual energy of the spiritual world. So Chit Shakti essentially refers to the spiritual energy of Krishna. Okay, in short. And that spiritual energy practically manifests in our life in giving us faith, giving us transcendental happiness in our devotional service, in giving us convictions in the process of devotional service, in empowering us to do things for Krishna's service, etc. So the activities of devotional service are enacted within the jurisdiction or on the platform of the spiritual energy, not on the platform of material energy. Okay?
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Amarendra Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Is my voice audible, Maharaj?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Hare Krishna. So thank you so much for this class, Maharaj. My question is not directly related to the class, but it's something to do with daily sadhana. Would that be okay if I can ask it? Yeah. So it's something to do with determination and consistency. So many times and again, it's not a general question, it's a question for myself. The mind gets very inspired hearing classes, and then there are even positive, determined steps in the mind that from tomorrow, and it could be Janmashtami, it could be Radhashtami, it could be Gaur Purnima, that my Lord, please empower me. I want to do, let's say, reading for half an hour every day, 1 hour every day, or whether it is chanting more japa, or whether it's whatever may be the determined vow. But then it goes on for a few days, whether it's a disturbed night's sleep in the previous night, which disrupts the next day, or whatever may be the reason. There could be so many minute details for that. So you have been living all your life, decade after decade in service. What would be the roadmap? What would be the guidance as to how we could maintain high enthusiasm, patience, determination, confidence in the process with consistency and determination?
Well, hearing and chanting and maintaining a service mood. Not that I have succeeded in doing that, but at least theoretically I can answer. In strong hearing and chanting, and being in that mood of being serving the devotees. I think that will take care of everything. Ultimately, without the mood of service, things become difficult. Hearing and chanting, of course, will purify. But without the mood of service, it will take much longer and may lead to other problems. It may lead to pride, it may lead to other things. But if we do our hearing and chanting strongly and couple it with a nice service attitude, then that, I believe, will be a formula for consistency.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, we have one more question from Sandeep Prabhu. Sandeep?
Yes.
One second.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful class. Maharaj, as you mentioned, Srimati Radharani is very tender, especially on a birthday, though she is always tender-hearted. Just wanted to understand from you and get some guidance. How do we develop ananyata as a servant to the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani?
By praying to her lotus feet and just continuing to follow her mood. Srimati Radharani, even though she is the topmost servitor of Krishna, but she's always assisting the others, the gopis. So therefore, following her footsteps and her mood, we should always be in the mood of assisting the other devotees in Krishna consciousness. That will attract her mercy. And of course, chanting her names along with the names of Krishna.
Very nice. Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj, would you have time for one more?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we have Krishna Darvesh. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, all Guru Shishya Prabhupada. Thanks for a very wonderful class, Maharaj. My name is Dilip Maharaj, and I was very much inspired with your Bhagavad Gita classes. Also, I use those classes in giving in our Bhakti Riksha, what is there in our desire trees. Today's question, Maharaj. Maharaj, we heard a lot about pure Naam, Shuddha Naam. Taking a Shuddha Naam, basically will purify and basically we'll able to get a Krishna Prem. Our mind is, especially my mind is very restless in the chanting itself. Then how about, yeah, obviously I understand millions of years I don't know nonsense, and Krishna mercy and Prabhupada mercy, we got a Krishna consciousness in this life. Then how I can achieve, or how I can see myself I'm towards going to the Shuddha Naam, or how practically apply and see I am progressing or not. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
We simply have to follow the program and the instructions that Srila Prabhupada has given us. That's all, nothing new. I don't have any new answer. It is just the same process of hearing, chanting, serving the devotees. The same process, we just keep doing sincerely, and everything will come. Okay?
We have one final
question, I think.
Yeah, one. Sorry, Maharaj?
One final question.
Yeah. Yes,
there is a
Maharaj.
hand raised there.
Yeah. So we have His Grace Adigadar Prabhu, who's also the congregation director for our community. So I will.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances, Srila Bhakti Rasamrita Swami Maharaj. My sincere gratitude to you for giving your valuable association to us today. Maharaj ji, my question is, after so many years in Krishna consciousness, my lust is still not decreasing. In fact, sometimes I feel that lust is just increasing. So how does a sadhak control lust?
The same process, the same answer as the previous question. Just continue the process. Everything comes automatically. Just keep doing what Srila Prabhupada has instructed. Nothing new to be done. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. And I hope you have a wonderful festival on Radhashtami in a day or two. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. We would like to thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time. And we look forward to hopefully hearing more from you, and maybe even having you in person once things open up. I guess that's going to be a while, but we thank you a lot for your association today. And our Radhashtami is actually tomorrow, so we hope to.
Tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah. So we hope to use the lessons that we've learned today for our festival tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, have a wonderful festival. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.